Okay, today I would like to talk about accommodations as they relate to employment. Accommodations are also very helpful for education, but most of these will be for employment. And this follows on what Nancy was saying about disclosure. If one has disclosed, then accommodations are a valuable tool. I believe that accommodations can turn disabilities into possibilities, possibilities for further education or possibilities for employment. Accommodations can lessen the impact of a disability. And I really like the World Health Organization's definition of disability. It makes me understand a little bit easier where accommodations come in. First on their list is impairment, and this is a biological situation, whereas it's a loss or abnormality of a functional system. So for example, if a person were to have the wiring of their nerves, the coating around that was to be spotty and lost, that would be a biological situation. That would be called multiple sclerosis or MS. The disability is a lack or an inability to do some function because of the impairment. So because of the poor wiring or the poor insulation of the nerves, this person would have very poor trunk balance and difficulty walking. And the handicap is where accommodations come in. The handicap is the social impairment because of the disability. This is when the disability bumps up against the environment. So for example, a person that has the multiple sclerosis with the weak legs that really can't climb stairs, they can't enter a particular building because there are stairs to that building. So accommodations can't change their disability of multiple sclerosis, but what it can do is lessen the handicap by making, for example, a ramp. So accommodations are modifications to the environment or to the individual which help create equal opportunities and kind of level the playing field for persons with disabilities. I'm going to go fairly quick here, as both people have mentioned already. This is a fairly unique, independent thing, and accommodations really should be assessed per person. So I'm just going to go over a few of the types of accommodations. First type of accommodations can be simply equipment. And I think we would agree that wheelchairs are an excellent accommodation, but anybody who has sat in a wheelchair would realize that they're significantly lower than counters, than stoves, than sinks, than desks. Having a wheelchair that actually elevates, that brings a person up to whatever level they want, is an excellent accommodation, and it's a lot more cost effective than having to change the environment around the person by building lower sinks and lower shelving. Having a wheelchair that moves in any, or raises to any position they want. Similarly, orthotics and prosthetics are excellent accommodations that allow people to participate fully in work and in sport, which is a really important part of life. And I just wanted to show this, that accommodations are also available to our furry friends. These are from a website here in HRM, a company called Canine Orthotics, and this company whole focus is to make accommodations for animals. This dog on the right apparently had some injury to his spinal cord and was pretty much immobile. So this is a wheelchair for a dog. He's slung under by this hammock, and then he's in this metal frame, and they say he's just as mobile out for his walks or in around the house as he was in the old days. And this dog here on the left, he was born with a congenitally short limb on the right, and so he was always walking around on 3 legs, but this place made him a little orthotic, or a prosthetic, sorry, that fit on the end of that leg, and he's now running on 4 legs. So orthotics are really good for animals, but animals are also good accommodations for us. I think we're all familiar with service dogs, very helpful for people with visual problems, or for people with movement problems, or for people with epilepsy, or for anxiety. And there on the right, monkeys are now starting to be used as service animals to help people open doors, open drawers, pick up things on the floor. So an accommodation, an animal is definitely an accommodation. A second form of accommodation is what's called assistive technology. This is the high-tech stuff. This is the computer things. This one, I think, is an accommodation that would be good for every single person. It's a mouse, but rather than mousing in the normal position with the palm down on the computer, which is hard on the nerves and the compression in the carpal tunnel, This puts the hand in a more functional position with the thumb pointing up, and it reduces the fatigue and the stress a lot of times when people are working with a computer. Whoops, sorry. This is a closed-circuit television, which is great for people with limited visibility. Actually, it's a camera that's facing down with a large screen monitor on top of that, and so the person can take any piece of paper, newspaper, magazine, journal, slide that under that, read it. They may be able to do crossword puzzles. And the beauty of this is it's also great for three-dimensional things, like looking at a prescription bottle or maybe looking at a can to see what the instructions or what the ingredients are. So this is something that allows people with limited visibility to function quite well. This is essentially a portable version of the same thing. It's a camera which is attached to a larger screen, and you can take that to the grocery store, you can take that to a restaurant and read the menus. It's actually quite helpful for people. Some people with disabilities have difficulty accumulating information from various sources, and this is a neat little stick. It works just like a highlighter, except what it does is instead of just turning yellow everything you run over it, it actually scans it in like a scanner, and so the person can take information from a magazine, from several different types of books. They can go to the library, then they can all come back and plug this little stick into their computer, and all that information is collated for them right in the computer. Makes it a lot easier for them. There's also a second version of this, which when you scan the printed text, it doesn't scan it in. What it does is it verbally reads out the words. So if somebody has limited vision or if somebody has difficulty reading printed text, but they're working, say, in a warehouse where all they have to do is get a little bit of information on each box to know that they're in the right area, they could scan the shipping label, it would read out the information, and it would allow them to do their work just as well as if they could actually read the material. I think most people are probably, or a lot of people are probably familiar with this. This is a program called Kurzweil, and it's very popular. It's a great program for allowing people who have limited vision or people who have difficulty reading material to hear the material read to them on the computer, but it also allows them, again, to collate information. You can see there's different, well, maybe you can see there's different color highlights there, and you could highlight everything in one type of information under yellow, highlight something with another form of information under the green, and then that information will be stored. So you could have all the information about one thing stored together. It's a very nice program. When you think about the advances that have been made in computers over the last 20 years, which has been amazing, the one thing that still stands out is computers are still very much a visual medium. You have to read the material on them, you have to click text boxes, you have to fill in dialog boxes. For people that have limited vision, that in the past has kind of held them back from computers. But there are some very nice assistive technology softwares out there that tend to limit that. This is a program called Zoom Text, which will zoom the screen up to as large as really you want the person to magnify it so they can see small sections of the screen at the same time and get the information. Perhaps if somebody has very low vision or no vision, this is a program called JAWS, which verbally reads out every single thing on the screen, every icon, everything on the screen. And if you've watched anybody who's proficient with this program, they can navigate through a computer and do everything that a person with 100% vision can. This is another very interesting thing called a refreshable braille display, and it sits, this strip at the base of the keyboard sits there, and it is connected to the computer, and the computer determines what's on the screen, turns it into braille, and the person can read it on this thin strip of 40 to 80 braille cells, which will keep them informed as to what's going on in the computer. If a person doesn't have very good access to a computer through their hands, they can't use the mouse or they can't use the keyboard, then this is a head-activated mouse. The person's wearing a hat which has a little dot on it, and there's a camera that sits on top of the monitor, so by moving their head, they can move the mouse around, they can double-click. A little keyboard comes up on screen so they can type, so they can do anything that anybody can do in a computer, they can do just by moving their head. If somebody didn't have good head control, here's exactly the same thing, only it's voice control. A voice-controlled mouse will allow you to move the mouse anywhere, open any program, send emails, do whatever. So those first two, the equipment and the hardware software, are accommodations that are kind of part of a person. They're bought for you, or you buy them and you take them with you. The next couple are accommodations that can happen at the job site. And the first one is job site modifications, things like installing an accessible washroom or installing a ramp. In this picture here, you can see that the judge's seat back there, it's only one step up to the seat. But if the person has very poor leg strength or is in a wheelchair, that one step is insurmountable. So putting in a ramp can make all the difference. As well, if somebody's in a wheelchair and working in an office, using these type of file cabinets where they are low. We don't have to have file cabinets stacked 10 feet high. They can be horizontal, and that makes it a lot easier for people that don't have the access to the height, and it's an adaptation that's in the workplace. And this final one, modification or recommendation of strategies, comes from the employer and actually costs nothing at all. I just have a couple examples here. I don't know if you can see it quite well in this light, but this is a typical office. You've got windows with light coming in, and maybe somebody who's sitting in this desk, well, this desk over by the window, perhaps they have some visual difficulty, and the light coming off the monitor makes it very hard for them to work on a computer. Well, moving them to another area of the office diminishes that impact and really costs the employer nothing. Similarly, this looks like my office, but if there's somebody that has a lot of difficulty with organization and they do need things organized and structured, putting them in an office like this, which has got paper everywhere, every flat surface has something on top of it, is probably not the best situation for them. Or if there's a person that has difficulty with attention and focus and maintaining focus, putting them in an office that's very open with a lot of people talking over each other's heads, phones ringing, that might not be the best bet for them. So some of the accommodations might be just simply modification of their office or their work environment. Or if somebody has lost hearing in one ear, they lose the three-dimensionality that we have of hearing, and they don't know when somebody's talking to them if it's coming from the left or coming from the right. So this gentleman is working in a fruit stall, and people are asking him, how much are these potatoes, how much are these bananas? Voices are coming from every direction. This might not be the best position to put him in. Or for some people with specific disabilities or taking medications for their disabilities, nights are not good for them. They may have difficulty sleeping, and for them, shift work is probably not the best idea. A lot of people can work days or afternoons, but nights are not really the best for them. Other forms of accommodation can be job restructuring, where the employer says they take away the non-essential tasks and say, okay, you can do these jobs, and maybe this part of your job can be done by somebody else. Another form of accommodation is allowing the employee to take a period of unpaid leave if they so need so. So where do you get these accommodations? Well, if you have been involved with post-secondary education in Nova Scotia, whether community college or university, the disability resource facilitators would be the people to speak to. They're the people that are knowledgeable about what accommodations are specifically best for you. And I really do believe that everybody has to be assessed uniquely, because one size doesn't fit all when it does come to accommodations. A second way that you may get accommodations is if you're working with a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist. They may have some suggestions. They may know exactly what you need. Similarly, a psychologist or a physician that you've been working with may make recommendations. Or somebody like myself, an accommodation coordinator in the community, may be the person that can help you determine what is the best for you. Okay, so if you get the accommodation, who pays for them? Because some of these things, like that elevating wheelchair, they're not cheap. You could pay for it yourself. Many people do. Some things are not that expensive. That scanning pen that I talked about was less than $200. The accommodation costs have come down because so many people are accessing them now. If you are a student, the Canada Access Grant via the student loan is a great way to get the accommodations that you need. Other government agencies out there may possibly give you some funding. It's a very tricky route sometimes, finding out which government agencies, but that's where talking to some people would be helpful. And the employer often can help to purchase some accommodations or afford some accommodations in an effort to keep this employee at work. So speaking of the employers, we have the duty to accommodate, which is a legal law that says that an employer has a duty to accommodate the individual needs of each employee up to the point of undue hardship. And this point of undue hardship depends. Usually the employers say, it costs too much. It's going to cost $50,000 to make everything for this person. It's just not feasible. But other times undue hardship may simply be, I'm a small company, I only have 3 employees, everybody does night shifts, and you're saying you can't do night shifts. That's an accommodation that I have difficulty accommodating. A lot of people think accommodations cost money, but this is interesting. Oh, that's the undue hardship. It's interesting that a study by Sears looked at all the accommodations that they did in a 15-year period, and 3% cost more than $1,000 and 69% cost nothing. In essence, over a 15-year period, 97% of the accommodations that Sears offered cost less than $1,000. And that's a small price to pay to get an employee who is going to work and to be a functional employee. I think accommodations actually create win-win situations. So, thank you very much.